Welcome. You found the first Birds on Power Lines podcast. The point of this short episode is to let you know who we are and the plans we have. By way of introduction, we, meaning my young adult child and I, have been saying for years that we should start a podcast. We fell into the idea because we have so much fun talking about the things that we love that we thought we should share. Very often we'd be into a fun conversation and say, we should totally podcast this. And by things we love, we mean pretty much anything. But typically it's our conversations about books, movies, and television shows that really get us going. As an aside, on that front, I think I did my parental duty of inducting my child into the world of nerdy entertainment, which I suppose now are called fandoms, because our loves tend to be toward that bent. The key obstacle now is that my child is about to head off to university, so that left us with a snag. How do we have a fun conversation when we're apart? You might be thinking, well, Zoom, of course, and I think that's the first thought for most of us after going through all of what we did during the pandemic. But the problem is, we both need to have time to sit down and do this at the same time in both locations. And we also have to have the frame of mind to record our thoughts spontaneously. This is the rub, because the chances of that happening are pretty low. So we wanted to find an alternative. That's when the idea of texting came to mind, but texting is definitely not podcastable. So what do we do? Well, for a class I was running, I fell into the idea of using a voice messaging app for an activity that I was going to do. And then I realized that this might be the perfect format for these conversations. And that's what you'll hear in this first episode, our first try at this system. And the conversation is about ideas for the podcast. We wanted to share these thoughts and hope that you, the listener, will comment with topics that you'd like us to talk about.
I'm kind of thinking that the podcast would be just things that are on our minds and things that we want to talk about with each other or with other people, because for some reason they come up in our life or we find them important at the time, and then we can share that with people. So we could include like random thoughts and ideas that we have, and we talk to each other through Voxer or through a messaging system, which I think we were talking about. And then we could try to sort through that and put together different ideas that we're talking about, but just recording our random thoughts to each other. I don't know, and all the things that we're talking about. And who knows, maybe we could do even radio plays and things like that. I don't know if you might not want to do that, but there are small and short radio plays that one could do, and that would be kind of fun.
I think that making it really just like random thoughts would make it more authentic. And I mean, yeah, I feel like we're having a conversation about things, but also just because I know like people like feeling realness from podcasts and stuff.
Maybe if we actually have some guests or somebody wants to talk about something interesting, then we could do it by Zoom, and that would give us actually an audio file that we could use. And I think that probably would be a kind of a nice way to do that.
And so, I mean, I don't know if you were thinking this, you probably were thinking this, but if we do it on Zoom, it would be kind of a little bit like staged, which is nice because that's funny.
I know we were talking about having art, and I don't know how you feel about using that watercolor painting that I did with the birds that are on the wire. Maybe that would work, and then we would need that audio waveform generator. That might be kind of cool for someone to look at.
Yeah, well, I like your painting. I mean, I like all of your paintings, but yeah, I think that one would be a good idea to use for our whole thing here. And I did find a app to make the audio waveform generator thing. We can try that out at some point, depending on how this goes.
Another really interesting thing that you might want to consider is if you really want to get some examples of compositions together for your music, you might want to compose music for either the YouTube channel for the playlists or for the podcast, and then figure out how to score that. That would be a really nice addition and a great way to showcase your musical talents.
And I've been like noodling around in GarageBand, trying to make some stuff. And I mean, that really helps a lot. But definitely composition software, using the GarageBand, or I have a MuseScore account, using that to kind of put together things. I could definitely, it would save us a lot of money, I guess, or effort by me just making the music and stuff. And I guess it would also help kind of, if this really goes anywhere, getting a bit of a reputation for composing and things. I don't know, or it would just be fun, experimental, help me kind of figure out what I'm doing with it and stuff.
And then I was also thinking that maybe we could actually sit down and I could answer some of those questions from that book that I have. You know, that book that asks me to talk about things retrospectively so that you have a record of that. You know, things like, you know, what was my favorite food when I was little, or whatever. And we could actually sit down and record that. And that way you'd have your answers. And yeah, and that's why I tried to find a microphone that we could use for that. And of course, Dad had one. So that might be something we can do. On that note, maybe it would be cool if we could get Oma to answer some of the questions too, and get ideas from what it was like when Oma was little or younger.
Yeah, using that book would, I mean, it would help me, because I would have something later when I'm really old and stuff to look back on and listen to. Maybe my eyesight might not be the greatest when I'm really old, so then I could listen to it. And the questions are pretty, like, varied. There's a wide variety of them, and they would help, like, I guess, people who are listening to this, I guess, get to kind of know more about us, other than like the random things we think about. And it'd be interesting to, like, kind of see that cross-generational comparison. I mean, I could probably answer a few of them too. I mean, not all of them, but a few of them. And though I don't know if you'd be a huge fan of recording things like this, but we can try.
I also think that using the questions from the book are things that other people could relate to. And I think that's kind of what we want to do, is that have topics and ideas that other people could relate to, and things that they might want to do with their own family, or get to know, you know, the same sort of things, or even in their heads, sort of try to answer the questions as well, or even think about what, you know, what would my mother or what would my family member also want to think about, or answer that question. Yeah, because I just think that would be sort of a way to, like you said, like get that kind of idea recorded, because sometimes it's hard to sit down and do that. It's better to have a conversation, I think, and you know, reflect on it, and other things will come up while you're answering the question. Um, yeah.
Yeah, and of course we'd have to probably, like, credit the book, like, cite your sources, like you do for a class and stuff. But yeah, I think that would really help with, like you said, having people, they're able to, like, answer in their heads, or think about what their own family would do, or maybe, like, start a conversation with with their family and stuff. That would, I think, be very it would be both, like, interpersonal and, like, personal people. Yeah.
Yes, that would give us like different ideas to talk about, because and it's also kind of like a reflective kind of idea. I think we need to make a must watch list. Like, maybe we need to watch seasons of, or old bits of Doctor Who, Or I don't know, what else? We should make a list. Talking about lists, aside from a watch list, we need to put together a reading list. What is our next book that we're going to listen to together or read together?
But yeah, I have a lot of I mean I'm on my own personal must watch and must read lists. I have a lot of stuff, but definitely I think there are a lot of things that we probably would enjoy watching or reading together that we just have to come up with something. And maybe we can talk about it, do like an episode by episode or chapter by chapter, or here's what we did watched or read today kind of thing, just kind of discuss it and stuff, like a review thing. I know I've seen podcasts that review different books, different shows, different movies and stuff, and those are usually pretty interesting to listen to.
Yeah, and of course with the lists, oh my God, we're so far behind on things like Murdoch Mysteries and stuff like that. I mean, that's an obvious thing for our list, but or we could even reflect back on some of our favorite episodes if we like open up uh like the Murdoch Mysteries wiki or whatever they call that, and then because it's been a while since we started that, and then we could go back and think about you know what was our favorite kind of character that we don't have anymore, like Gillies or whatever, and was he really dead? I I don't know. Just because they saw his brain, I don't know if he's, who knows? That guy was pretty sneaky, but he hasn't come back. But yeah, and we could sort of talk about those sorts of things on our list. Or we were thinking about looking at the Doctor Who kind of thing, and sort of because we both want to kind of do that, and I think we're both old enough that we wouldn't be scared of the like I told you, I was scared of the theme song when I was little, and anyways, yeah, we could let's I think that would be a good thing to do. But even just what would be our next thing to read, right? Like we love books by Anthony Doerr, but I don't know what else he's written. So maybe that's something else we could look into.
Yeah, I mean it's been what, like 4 or 5 years since we first started watching Murdoch Mysteries. And I mean, right now, I absolutely love what's going on with Crabtree and Effie and all that stuff. I love that. It's really cute. Um, yeah, it's been a while since we. I mean, we could even start rewatching it and then do a whole thing about, oh, I forgot this happened, or oh, I remember this, and like even that found wallet scene that we always quote from. I don't even know what season, when they found the wallet on the ground. One thing I think that might be interesting that we could do for one of our first like watching must watch things is like an episode by episode thing of All the Light We Cannot See, because we read the book together and now we're watching the show together. So maybe just like how did you think it was different? What we think was well done? What was interesting about what they did and stuff in the show? I mean, I definitely, because I like the music. I like the music. The music was pretty good. I'm gonna have to look into who composed it and stuff. But yeah, I think that would be a good idea for us to start doing maybe.
Oh yeah, that's a really good idea. I think that's a fantastic idea. And of course, I didn't even listen to the music. I'm sorry, but I'm sure it's fantastic. So maybe we should do that. I mean, I think now that you mention it, I'm going to pay more attention. And I mean, I figure the music must be fantastic, but it's just not something that sticks in my head. Unless there's, I mean, I don't know. I guess I was more looking at the first episode. I think was paying too much attention to, how it was different from the book, and I wasn't even thinking about the music. But yeah, I think that'd be great. Like, we should actually maybe we should watch it again. I don't know, but we're on to the second episode, so but yeah, that would be a good one to start with as well. Yeah.
And it might even be interesting to do like a comparison between like Anthony Doerr's all of his different books, like because I mean all authors have a like a thing, like a way they write, and it might be interesting to kind of compare, like, oh, this character was kind of like that character, and like, oh, this happened, and maybe even, oh, if the characters from this book were in that book, what would they do? It'd be pretty interesting conversations, I would think.
Something that I was just thinking about with doing this on Voxer is because you're giving an answer and it's actually forcing me to fully listen and be engaged in what you're saying. You know what I'm saying? Because sometimes when you're in a conversation, you get really into it and you don't fully listen to what the other person is saying. So I think this is really, you know what I mean. Because you're into your own thought while that person is having their thought, and then sometimes you're not fully engaged in what the other person is saying. So I think this is really interesting because it's really forcing me to listen to what you're thinking all the way to the end of your thought. And I'm already thinking about what I want to say, but I'm fully listening to all the way to the end. And I think that's really an interesting way to have a conversation.
Yeah, I also think it's pretty nice because I know definitely for me, when I start talking about something that I really enjoy, I usually just want to get everything out there and I don't even listen to the person that I'm supposedly having a conversation with. Now I know like it's a bit different with me because I'm not really that like social in general, just mostly around people that I like my family or my friends. But I mean, I don't know how it might be different for you because you talk to a lot of people all the time about stuff. So I think you probably have more practice with listening to other people than I do. And I mean, also you're older than me, so that might be a part of it. But I know I definitely have a lot of trouble sometimes when I'm really invested in something, seeing other points of view.
The other thing I really like about using Voxers and talking with you is because it's completely unscripted. It's just I talk to you and then you talk to me and I don't know what you're going to say. And just like a real conversation. But again, like I really have to listen to you. And I have time as well to think about what I want to answer. So I really enjoy this. Well, I'm excited that we're finally really talking about how we're going to do our podcast.
If you're hearing this, you've listened to the end. Thank you. After this experiment, we decided that our rule will be to respond to a voice message within a day to keep the conversation moving. We also decided that when we have podcasts with guests, that Zoom will be the method, so we can both be involved in the conversation. And I have a desire to try radio plays as well. There's lots to come, and I hope you're interested to find out where this Mom and Child project ends up going. Thank you for being part of this. Coming up, we have a series of podcasts involving Good Omens and Doctor Who. Thanks for listening.